Hello everyone, I'm TG, and I'm here once again to talk to you guys about the Pathogen DLC for Aliens Fireteam Elite. Today I'm going to show you guys a build that I've been using on Extreme and Insane for my Lancer, and I actually noticed something. Looking back at my videos, I haven't made a Lancer build yet. Whenever it came out, I guess that's when I kind of like dropped off playing, as regularly as I do, so I never put one together, so here it is. Now I'm going to show you what perks I use, explain why I use them, crunch a few numbers, and then at the end of the video I'm just going to briefly touch on what weapons I'm using and why. So let's dive right in. Now to get things rolling, I'm only using Omniscience when it comes to Overwatch. What this does is allow Overwatch to stack 6 times, and you only lose 1 stack of Overwatch every 3 seconds as opposed to every 1 second. So this is kind of like the gold standard when it comes to Overwatch. You almost always want to use this no matter what build you're using. Quite frankly, it's really the only Overwatch perk worth a damn. A few of the other ones look good on paper, but they're just not practical. It's really strange that the Lancer has so many options when it comes to Overwatch, when really, you don't need any of them. Next is one I really like. High Impact Fire causes your damaging shots to increase the chance for an enemy to be stumbled by 3%, stacking up to 5 times, giving you a total of 15% extra stumble chance. Now, this is better whenever it comes to something like an automatic weapon, such as the minigun, the smart gun, or even the heavy pulse rifle, but I find it still useful in this build because a lot of the time, my Lancer is using his CQW, and you also do want that extra stagger on your heavy anyway. But that's just me. If you want to add something else for those 3 perk slots, go right ahead. Speaking of heavy weapons, I threw on Demolisher Heavy Training. That's going to increase the max ammo of heavy weapons by 20% and their reload speed by 15%. So I find Lancers need this even more than Demolishers do, because in general, I find Lancers have a much tougher time with ammo management than the Demolisher, because the Demolisher has micro rockets, that's all kinds of DPS, but the Lancer can't use a rifle. They can only use a CQW, and pretty much whatever CQW you're using, even the quote-unquote ammo efficient ones, you're going to be blowing through ammo no problem. So you want all the help you can get when it comes to your heavy. Now, when it comes to Onslaught, I'll explain my rationale here. First, I'm going to throw on Tenacious. That's going to cause Onslaught to last 20% longer, and it's going to increase your weapon damage and damage resistance by an additional 5%. And in addition to that, I'm also using Quick Charge 2 in 1, which is going to increase the recharge speed by 20%. Again, this is actually more than if you just used Quick Charge 3. So I didn't add too much to Onslaught, and the reason for that is much like Overclock in Extreme and Insane specifically, there's a lot of times where you're waiting to use it. Like, it's off cooldown and you're like, I gotta wait for the right perfect moment. So I don't think you need that much recharge whenever it comes to this build, but that's just me. Now, one last thing I do want to mention is you can get rid of Quick Charge 1 and the Force Multiplier 1 that I'm going to be using on Particle Lance, because that will free up 2 spots for you to use Demolisher Heavy Expertise. And what that does is give you a nice boost to your heavy damage as well as your AoE radius. So that can be very, very useful. Now, last but certainly not least, let's talk about our Particle Lance. I'm going to be using the brand new Particle Pulse, which allows you to shoot 3 smaller particle pulses that can be fired one at a time, very similar to precision rockets on the Demolisher, and they recharge over time. The added little bonus is this can actually stun enemies up to 2 seconds per hit. Now, unfortunately, this is not as awesome as the precision rockets, because there's a couple things here. Number one, precision rockets can be fired while you're reloading, while you're moving, etc. But Particle Lance, you stop dead in your tracks, charge up, and shoot. So it takes a little longer, and they're not going to do too much damage, but we're going to try our best to boost that with this build. But at the end of the day, you're not going to see the raw, unbridled strength of that precision rockets. Moving on, I'm going to be using Residual Charge. This means foes killed by the Particle Lance leave an electrical hazard at their corpse for 4 seconds, which deals damage over time. Now, this is completely interchangeable with the one that will slow enemies by 40% when they're hit by Particle Lance. It's really up to your playstyle and what feels best. Moving on to my universals, I'm going to be using batteries included and rapid deployment. That's going to give me a 40% increase to my recharge speed. And on top of that, I'm using Force Multiplier 3, 2, and 1, which will give me a 38% damage boost when I use my Particle Lance. So at the end of the day, you're looking at about an 11.5 second cooldown for your Particle Lance, while you're not sacrificing too much in terms of damage when compared to the regular Particle Lance. But honestly, the best thing about this to me is the fact that it stuns enemies up to 2 seconds. But keep in mind, if you don't know this already, all the stuns in the game do have diminishing returns. So if you're using it against the same target, it's going to stun them for 2 seconds, then a second and a half, then a second, then half a second, etc., etc. until it doesn't stun them at all. But really, you're not going to run into that problem unless you're going against a particularly nasty pathogen stalker, which you will, by the way. So bear that in mind. And finally, let's take a look at the weapons that I'm using. And as always, I will say those attachments completely up to you and your playstyle, as well as the weapons themselves. It's all down to what you feel most comfortable with. I just want to show you guys what I've been using and what I've been having success with. So when it comes to my CQW, I am using the M39 automatic submachine gun, and that's probably the first time you've ever heard anybody say that, but that's how I roll. All honesty though, the reason I'm using this is I tested all the CQWs, and when it comes to the Lancer, I came to the conclusion that I just want a rifle at the end of the day. I just want a goddamn rifle, but you can't have that. So I was using the Storm Surge for a little while, and I don't really like the burst on it, plus it's not that great anyway. And then I was using the Fletchet, but the accuracy and stability are poo-poo, and it burns through ammo way too fast. And then, of course, there's the option of shotguns, which do great damage, but they have so little ammo. And like I said earlier, Lancer really struggles when it comes to ammo. So that's kind of out of the question. So while it's often considered the ugly duckling of the CQW family, it's actually a pretty good middle ground, because it has a big enough reserve that you're not worrying too much about ammo, and it hits hard enough that you're getting some bang for your buck. It actually does more damage than a lot of the automatic and semi-automatic rifles. And when it comes to the accuracy and stability, don't be too caught up in the numbers game, because with the right attachments, if you're firing off in what I like to call the half burst, which is, a middle ground between semi-automatic and fully automatic, you're going to get some nice range out of it, and it does pretty good damage, like I said earlier. So it functions almost like a rifle. Not quite as good as the Vol, but I actually kind of like it better than the Vol in general. So give it a try, you guys. See what you think. Finally, when it comes to my heavy, I am using the Microburst Launcher, which is a weapon that I totally underrated whenever it first came out. I didn't like it, but upon reflection, it's pretty darn good. Now, Extreme and Insane, in my opinion, it's all about launchers. However, most launchers are not viable because they have such a small ammo reserve. Even if you have a recon on your team, you're still running out, which is just absurd. So aside from the brand new launcher, I would say Microburst is best in class. The only place that it struggles is the magazine size. It's very small. However, with the right attachments, like anything, you can make it very viable and pump up that reload speed so you don't have to worry too much about it. Plus, whenever you're using Onslaught, you're laughing. So Marines, that is the build. I hope it helps you out just a little bit. It's what I've been using in Extreme and Insane when it comes to the Pathogen DLC. In fact, I just finished the last mission of Pathogen on Extreme the other day using this build, and oh my, that is something I don't want to do ever again. I don't look forward to Insane. It is so stressful. It's so difficult, but it was a lot of fun. So as always, guys, don't forget to stick around the channel because there's more builds, more guides coming very soon. And of course, thank you all so much for watching. I'm TG. If you like what you saw, you know what to do.